Good morning, Rochester. I'm Stacy Henning of Greater Rochester Enterprises, and this is Eyes on the Future. Today, we're discussing the shift from traditional office values to conscious leadership and engaged employee cultures in an effort for businesses to stay competitive in the global market. We've got a packed studio here this morning. Not only do we have guests, but we have their groupies here with us this morning. It's kind of fun to have such a crowded studio. Our first guest is Jim Gertner. Jim is the Director of Projects and Operations with MCC's Corporate College, which offers the Developing the Conscious Leader and Conscious Culture program. Good morning, Jim.
Good morning, Stacy. Thanks for having us.
Our second guest is Bob Fries. Bob is a training consultant and instructor for MCC's Corporate College. He's also Chief Learning Architect at his company, the Opportunity Group, which was formed way back when in 1995. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Stacy, and thanks for having us today.
Yeah, and you've already been giving us some great coaching advice as we got ready for today's show, so I'm sure you're going to share some great information with our listeners as well.
Thank you.
And our third guest is Bob Bechtold, another Bob here in the studio. Bob is the founder and president of Harbeck, as well as a graduate of MCC's Developing the Conscious Leader and Conscious Culture program. Good morning, Bob.
Good morning, Stacy.
And I was talking to you before the show. I know Harbeck is out there, and is it in Wayne County? And I'm visualizing these wind turbines that you guys have out there as a part of your energy supply, right?
Correct.
So what were you telling me before the show that is a zero? What is it?
We are a carbon neutral company, which means we take all the responsibility for any carbon that's a result of our business being in existence. So we make no negative carbon impact on the environment.
It's impressive. And you guys manufacture components?
Precision metal and plastic component parts.
And you've been in business for quite a long time, right?
40 years.
40 years. Yeah. That's impressive, too. And our final guest, last but certainly not least, is Juliana Yurkovich, who is an all-state insurance agent who leads a team of 7 here in Rochester. She's also a graduate of MCC's Developing the Conscious Leader and Conscious Culture program. Good morning.
Good morning.
And you were sharing with me the fact that you speak several different languages in addition to your impeccable English.
Thank you.
What else do you speak?
I also speak Ukrainian, Russian, and Polish fluently.
All right, so I hear a little bit of an accent coming out. Jim, let's start with you. MCC's Corporate College offers this program we've been referencing, Conscious Leader and Conscious Culture program, that emphasizes a different approach to leadership. Give us a sense of the background on the program.
Sure, Stacy. The program itself is fully immersive. It's one of those programs that we believe shares that interactivity and gets the whole self involved in a leadership understanding standpoint. It really developed from the starting point was working with Bob in other opportunities when we first started selling corporate training about 5 or 6 years ago under Todd Oldham's leadership. He asked that we extend the programming and work with the business community to do more things around leadership development. And this was one of those programs that we started in a modular format. We work with several companies that were looking for some of the components of this Conscious Leader program. And this is a good element of stakeholder needs, because we responded to companies who said it's either not enough. Worked with Bob very closely on putting those components together, and it's expanded and become this 7-stage, 3-hour-a-week program, 24 hours of contact time that again involves the self, leading self, and leading others.
And we'll be talking about some of the components of that program throughout the hour and giving our listeners some great tips that I hope that they will take back and apply to their own personal development. Bob Fries, leadership is currently a hot topic in the business world. How does your program take a tactical look at leadership?
Sometimes people think that leadership is very complex, and if we overthink it, it can be. And really, fundamentally, I look at it as a 3-sided triangle. And at the top of that triangle, as a leader, I really have to make sure that myself and my team are literally on the same page about what it is we're excited about. Because if we're not all excited about the same thing, then what are we doing here? And the components of what we're excited about are things like understanding our higher purpose, understanding who our stakeholders are, who are the people out there that we're really serving, and that includes ourselves and each other. What are those stakeholder needs? Do we really understand what our stakeholders are expecting from us, which helps us then understand what we're doing out there? And then as a team, what are our core values? And our core values are those things that we stand for, and that's really what pulls the team together. So at the top of that pyramid, what are we excited about? And make sure that everybody is literally on the same page for that. Then we explore on one corner of the pyramid the how. How do I show up? How do I run meetings? How do I give presentations? How do I communicate? How do I have conversations with my people? I need to, as a leader, pay attention to every interaction I have with every stakeholder, everyone on my team, all the time, because I am fundamentally a role model for my team, and how I show up helps them understand how they should show up. And then the third side of that triangle is where things get deep, and Jim talked about that immersiveness and interactiveness in the whole experience. Why do I show up this way? What drives me? What motivates me? And we use different tools like DISC, a motivational guide. There's different systems that we explore in the experience that help us understand why we show up that way.
DISC, we've certainly, I'm very familiar with DISC, and it's probably a little bit of an occupational hazard because I meet people and go, I wonder what their profile is. She seems like a D. Oh, okay. He's definitely a D. I get that.
And part of it is become aware of my profile. I'm a high I, and that is good in many cases. However, sometimes I can get too excited, which turns people off, especially the high Cs and so on. So part of it is understanding the differences of people and being conscious of flexing my style so that I can work better with all the folks on my team.
It's reminding me of something that I learned as I went through that personality profile process. At GRE, we definitely use it. And one of the key things I learned, it's not about how I want to be treated, it's how that other person wants to be treated, how they respond best to communication, and being respectful of what we call the platinum rule of do unto others as they'd like you to do unto them, right?
Right.
Which is so important. Juliana, share a little bit about your prior business experience before enrolling in the Conscious Leadership Program.
Yeah, I started as an insurance intern years ago, and after graduating and finishing my university and coming back to Rochester, I actually went back to the same office and worked there where I had an internship originally. So slowly I grew to love the industry and wanted to open my own agency, which I was able to do October 1st, 2014. And basically since then I've been an agent, an Allstate agent since about almost 3 years now.
So if anyone has challenges with a hurricane, they should call you.
Yes, they should, but I don't know.
Luckily, we don't have that here in Rochester.
Yes, we're blessed not to have that.
Right. What about for you, Bob Bechtel? And give me a sense of why did you feel the program was right for you?
Well, my origins are I'm a tool maker, and I started the company 40 years ago, but with absolutely no knowledge about business management. So I just evolved into it accidentally, stumbling and tripping for the last 40 years. And so understanding people and all that was not my priority. I was focused on technology and keeping the business profitable. So I was raised in the mentality 40 years ago and 50 years ago, actually, when I was an apprentice, that you just did it the way the boss said. That's all there was to it. It was my way or the highway, and that was a very serious rule to follow. So I just carried it on. And then as time went on and we got more and more people, and I saw more and more needs for something better and was told by many that I should be improving it. And so that's when I started looking for something.
Bob Fries, we just have a couple seconds. Why are leaders like Juliana and Bob a good fit for this program that we're going to be continuing to talk about this hour?
It's really not so much age or experience or the size of the company. Bob has done well. I think there's over 140 folks in your organization, and Juliana has grown hers from 4 when we started to 7 now. It's more people with the ability to be curious about who they are, how they're showing up, where they want to go, and what they want to do with their life. And the willingness to explore through that curiosity growth to build something better and bigger than themselves.
Podcasts of Eyes on the Future are available at rochesterbiz.com and through the iTunes Store. Coming up, we'll continue talking with our guests about their approach to leadership and how it's contributed to their business when Eyes on the Future returns on News Radio Wham 1180. I'm Stacy Henning of Greater Rochester Enterprise. This is Eyes on the Future. This morning we're discussing the shift from traditional office values to conscious leadership. But first, we're featuring a segment on our show called Eyes on You. And during the segment, we ask our guests something fun, rapid fire questions about his or her life and career. And today we're going to feature you. You're in the hot seat, Juliana. Juliana Yurkovich is an Allstate insurance agent, and she's a graduate of the MCC Corporate College's Conscious Leadership Program, which we're going to be talking about throughout the hour. Juliana, we're talking a lot about leadership this morning. Who has most influenced you to be a great leader?
Well, it's definitely a hard question to answer, but going back from my early ages, I will start with my parents. Definitely, picking up our family, moving from Ukraine to U.S. without any of us speaking English, having very limited financial resources, to me was, extremely courageous and risk-taking, and I think that was probably the best leadership form that I've seen from very early age. Excuse me.
And you moved here when you were 15, right?
Correct.
To
yes.
Rochester?
Yes, to Rochester, yes. And, I think my teachers throughout high school and college, people like Bob and my former boss have been amazing leaders that I could, learn from. And I think one other leader, historical figure, would be Abraham Lincoln. That is also one to look up to and learn from a lot.
Do you have any non-traditional or unique ways in which you motivate your employees to do their best?
Yeah, we have a couple of things that we do in my office. We have a motivational wheel that I took from this course that I took with Bob at MCC, and we use this wheel to basically pick two elements. There's about 15 to 20 elements on the wheel, and we pick two. Each employee once a year sits down with me and they kind of refresh and pick two more, whichever way they get motivated. It could be environment, it could be more time off, more money, or being recognized. So I use that to help me narrow down how I can inspire this particular person. We also have visionary board in the office. It's probably one of the more fun things. Everyone gets to put what their goals are in life and career, and it kind of helps me understand them as better as people, what they want in life, what they want out of life. So it guides me how to set up their compensation packet.
What motivates them?
Mm-hmm.
Eyes on the Future is sponsored by Canandaigua National Bank and Trust, the Simon Business School, AP Professionals, and CDS Life Transitions. If you have a question about leadership, give us a call at 1-800-295-1180 or 222-1180. Bob Bechtold, what has been the biggest benefit to you and your team after taking a new approach to leadership?
I think it's been the awareness of the importance of communication, and specifically the strong priority about planning for meetings. Preparing for a meeting is as good as the meeting will be is how well you prepare. So you can't just go to it and expect it to happen well. You have to be prepared.
And I know, Bob Fries, you guys, as a part of this 7-week program, you talk about how to run an effective meeting. Do you have any other tips to share on that front?
The meetings are such an important part of any organization. And what's really come out over the last few years in planning meetings, and Bob is so right, meetings are really 3 parts: the planning, then running the meeting, and then the follow-up after the meeting. And we don't have to spend a whole lot of time on it. However, here's really what matters. If my boss runs a meeting and that meeting is terrible, my boss is subconsciously telling me I don't have to pay attention to my work because they're not paying attention to their work. However, when I walk into a meeting and things run well and things are planned and people are set up for success and the messaging is clear and everything works, I walk out inspired, I'm engaged, and I know that the people in my organization are paying attention to what's important. So that's a message to me that I should do the same thing too.
I'm curious to know from your perspective, Jim, toxicity in the workplace can be a big issue if left unresolved. Is there any advice you'd give people on how to resolve that?
Well, I think a couple things, Stacy. First of all, like this course points out, strive for mutual purpose with your employees, with your clients, with your stakeholders. And one of the things we talked about earlier was the DISC assessment tool that we use in this program that indicates your style under stress, other people's style, other people how they're adapting it in the workplace, understanding others. It's not all about, as we've talked about, it's not all about me. It's about the people you work with or the people you're working for or the results that you're trying to gain as a group, as a cohesive group. So again, as Bob Bechtold pointed out, communication is key also, making sure that your folks know what the goals are of the company. We've talked with several companies in the area locally where the leaders talk about the goals and how they're inspiring their group to drive results, but they're not sharing that down. And we have programs that can help with that communication at the leadership level.
Bob Bechtold, you shared with me the one action you took after this training program was starting to meet with all of your employees. Talk to me a little bit more, or share with our listeners the process you implemented.
Well, we were trying to address a common problem that was derived from one of the sessions that we took with Bob, and it was a concern over my succession plan. And I thought I had communicated it very well to the group, but I hadn't. And so when that came out as an action item in the next class to fix it, I came up with the idea of taking every employee to lunch. And so now for more than a year, I take 3 at a time to either every other week to either lunch or dinner or breakfast, depending on which shift they work on. And in my opinion, in 40 years of running the business, it is the most significant idea I ever had, because I'm not naturally a good communicator to people and just casual talker. So I don't go out and shop and mingle and all that, but this forces me to get to know each person on slightly on a personal level, and it's invaluable.
How did you find out that the way you communicated your succession plan didn't go over well?
Because the class before that was to find a problem in your group, so teaching you to communicate to find it. And we were a group of 5 from our company, and one of the other people came up with that was his problem. Then the next following class, we had to come up with a solution or a way to address the problem. And so I took his problem that he found and figured out a solution for my next class.
Juliana, how have you seen success since you're enrolling in the program?
Oh, there's multiple success takeaways from the class, but I think my number one would be learning to actively listen to my employees and just overall in my everyday life. Probably one of the best things I took away.
Podcasts of Eyes on the Future are available at rochesterbiz.com and through the iTunes store. Coming up, our guests offer actionable items for impactful leadership when Eyes on the Future returns after the news on News Radio Wham 1180. Welcome back. Time now for the second half of Eyes on the Future. I'm Stacy Henning of Greater Rochester Enterprise. This morning we're discussing the shift from traditional office values to conscious leadership. We're doing so with Jim Gertner, the Director of Projects and Operations with MCC's Corporate College, Bob Fries, a training consultant and instructor for MCC's Corporate College, Bob Bechtold, another Bob here in the studio, founder and president of Harbeck, and Juliana Yurkovich, an all-state insurance agent. Bob and Juliana are graduates of MCC's Developing the Conscious Leader and Conscious Culture program. So I'm going to ask the students or the graduates, Bob and Juliana, how do you encourage your team to provide you with feedback on your performance? Let's start with you, Juliana.
Well, originally when I was going through the course, I actually took back one of the effective listening guidelines. It's a sheet that has maybe 30 different lines of if you're an effective listener or not. And I handed it to my employees and I asked them to fill out and tell me what I'm not on that list. So I was taken back a little bit when I collected the sheets back and I looked over and, my staff was very honest, so I appreciated that. And basically, they told me that I need to improve my listening skills and let go of some control as well. So it was very educational to me.
What about for you, Bob?
Well, for us, it was our I think it is as I mentioned earlier, the one-on-one meetings that I've been able to have as a result of thinking of a plan to schedule and consistently talk with people one-on-one. Because I think, and that is the purpose of those lunch meetings, is to tell me how am I doing face-to-face and uninterrupted by any other part of business. We leave the building, and so I'm giving them a chance to say anything that they want to about not only how am I doing, but what would they like to see different.
I mean, nobody likes unsolicited advice, so I think it's great that you guys are encouraging people to provide you with feedback, because you're not going to learn and grow and be more effective if everyone's just yesing you, right?
Right.
You know, that's one thing I've learned along the way, is to provide constructive, thoughtful feedback when I think it's appropriate. I usually say, I have some thoughts on that if you would like to hear them. And then a team member, a boss will say yes or no.
It's effective opener.
I've learned that. I'm pretty well coached. What about, can it be difficult for anyone? Obviously, it's difficult for anyone to receive constructive feedback, even leaders. How do you self-reflect once the feedback is given? Juliana, what did you do based on the fact that you heard you're maybe not the best listener? Hopefully you heard that.
Yes, I did. I heard that. And of course, I think that evening I was just like, oh gosh, I need to step back and review it and see what is it that I'm doing that might not be as well as it could be done. So I think with this course, what really helped me is to reflect back on who I am as a leader and what are my weaknesses, what are my strengths, and knowing that you can then actively get more training, go back, speak to your friends or someone like Bob, and get that feedback and improve based off knowing the truth.
And the Bob you're talking about is Bob Fries,
yes,
who is the instructor of the program. And, it's really important to have people around you who fill in your blind spots, right?
Yes, it is, yes.
And maybe in this program you guys teach people how to corral the resources around you to, maybe fill in where you're not as effective.
Well, and when we talk about feedback, that feedback comes for conscious leaders, it comes in so many different forms. As a leader, I'm responsible for what's going on and what's not going on my team. And so I need to stop and look, what is happening, what isn't happening, what are people saying, what aren't people saying, what are the questions that aren't being asked. And conscious leaders, they look in many different areas for feedback, and it's not about being wrong. It's about understanding what do we need to focus on to be more successful. Because as Peter Senge said in The Fifth Discipline, the only organizations that will survive in the chaotic future are the organizations that become learning organizations. And feedback is nothing more than seed and fertilizer for learning.
Jim, do you solicit feedback from your clients in the corporate college program? I'm assuming you do, so maybe it's more, what do you do with the feedback that you get?
Stacy, absolutely, we do. Just a little, again, background on the Conscious Leader program. This is one of 100 open enrollment non-credit programs that we have through MCC Corporate College. This first program ran in February after Bob and I kind of worked through the actually threading of the learning. This program first ran in February of 2015. By the time we get through the fall, nearly 400 will have completed this program alone.
It's a nice boost to workforce productivity. Thank you for doing that.
Absolutely. And we've had more than 20 companies involved in this particular program, including advanced manufacturing firms, optics, engineering, financial services, healthcare, fulfillment, travel and leisure. And as far as getting that client feedback, one of the processes that we have at Corporate College for an on-site customized training is we do solicit feedback after each session from the participants and at the conclusion of a course or a program. And then we'll go back to the client and we'll go back to the user and sit down and do a debrief session, talk with the sponsor who's contracted with us to do the training in their organization, find out what they're hearing. Was this impactful? Did it work for you? Did it meet the learning objectives? So that's a constant process and a constant improvement process. We'll take that feedback and make changes to programs and how we deliver.
You can be brutally honest if you can say it with the right tone, right?
Absolutely.
Eyes on the Future is sponsored by the Max and Marion Ferris Charitable Foundation, Mengel Metzger Bar, Hardesty Creston Emery, and Greater Rochester Enterprise. If you're just tuning in to Eyes on the Future, we're talking about MCC's Developing the Conscious Leader and Conscious Culture program. If you have a question for us, give us a call at 1-800-295-1180 or 222-1180. So we've been talking a lot about feedback. How can leaders effectively provide feedback to motivate their teams? Bob Bechtel, let's start with you.
Well, for us, again, my thing is to try to force myself into a procedure to make sure that I execute it. And as an example, when our group of 5, they were the senior managers in the company, when we completed the program, we put into place a follow-up that is every week we continue it. So we have at least a 1-hour meeting every week on a specific day, and we continue to have that dialogue where the core of it is coming from the things that we learned in that program.
What about for you, Juliana?
I think it's having an open door policy, truly having that open door, not just saying it, but inviting and letting your employees sit down and talk to you and not just have a meeting, not let me tell you what I'm expecting from you. It's having that conversation where this is what's being successful for me, this is what's not working for me, and helping them overcome that, but also allowing me to be to listen to them. So when they give me that feedback, I either act on it and I show them that I care and I make those changes. It kind of encourages them to continue giving me feedback and for me to grow better, like you said earlier.
Well, and also people get motivated by, praise. So when I see someone doing something really well, I take a moment to really appreciate that action. And on our team, every 2 weeks we give someone a little Hercules Award, just to acknowledge someone who's living the values of our organization. It's simple, it takes just a couple seconds, but it makes people feel really good to know that other people are noticing when they are going above and beyond what's called of them in their job, or they're living the values, the mission of the organization. I saw Bob Fries writing some notes here as we're talking about feedback. Was there something you wanted to share?
Well, in feedback, there's three different studies, and I won't get into the details of them. However, in the experience, we go through that folks want to understand that they are valued in the organization. And if they don't feel valued, then they're just coming to work, and they're really not showing up as creative problem solvers and doing the best for stakeholders. The other is we all want a certain level of relationship with our boss and with our coworkers. And if I don't feel like the boss cares about me at all, then why do I care about the organization or the results of the organization? And something that a number of us have touched on a couple of times is that we have to create, as leaders, psychological safety, a safe place to give feedback, to learn, to be right, to be wrong, to try things out. And a lot of people walk out of this experience understanding I have to become safe for people versus being right all the time.
Isn't it, I'm thinking back over my career, there's certain leaders that I would walk over hot coals for, and others I'm just like, okay, yeah, I'll do what you ask of me, but I won't necessarily go above and beyond. And I've been lucky over the last several years to work with people that really inspire me and motivate me to do more than just punch the clock.
Right.
And maybe part of it is because of the mission of the organization I work for. It's about growing Rochester's economy, trying to land that next project, such as an Amazon, which we're all working tirelessly already on to try to figure out how to creatively get their attention. But when we're successful, it changes lives because it's creating meaningful work.
And you've bought into the why it's important, what the purpose is, and it's bigger than any of ourselves singly. And
that's the point that I was going to make too. Is it's people want to know the why. People want to know the why they're coming to work. What am I contributing to the organization? Not only the organization, but what is the organization contributing to the world?
Podcasts of Eyes on the Future are available at rochesterbiz.com and through the iTunes store. Coming up next, Eyes on the Future returns to wrap it up on News Radio WHAM 1180. Welcome back. We're wrapping up Eyes on the Future. This morning we're discussing the shift from traditional office values to conscious leadership. I'm Stacy Henning of Greater Rochester Enterprise. We're having a great discussion here, both on air and off air, so I'm going to try to weave some of this conversation that we just had off air into the show this morning. Our guests this morning are Jim Gertner, the Director of Projects and Operations with MCC's Corporate College, Bob Fries, a training consultant and instructor for MCC's Corporate College, Bob Bechtel, founder and president of Harbeck, and Juliana Yurkovich, an all-state insurance agent. Bob and Juliana are graduates of MCC's Developing the Conscious Leader and Conscious Culture program. Eyes on the Future is sponsored by Canandaigua National Bank and Trust, the Simon Business School, AP Professionals, and CDS Life Transitions. Thanks as always to my co-producers Sarah Jones and Annalise, and thanks to Nikki for keeping me on time this morning. We were just having a really interesting and fun conversation off air, and it's something that's woven into this program that the team at MCC is executing right now. And the key question that I wanted to ask is, how do you deal with toxicity in the workplace? Because we've all worked places where there's just that one person who is just causing a lot of challenges. So how do you deal with that toxicity and that toxic personality? Let me ask you, Bob Fries.
Well, I'm so glad you asked me that question. And toxicity in the workplace is one of those things that we all know and understand, and it just sucks the life out of a team. The first part of it is, as a manager or a leader within an organization, a really difficult person who has issues, the first answer is, I am not here to fix you, and I am not here to deal with all of your issues. That's what therapy is for. So part of conscious leadership is to let go of the need to try and fix this person. The second way is, there's a part of the program is called Everyday Practical Leadership, which is a 5-step process for engaging the team and delivering incredible results and learning. And there's also a big part of that where the team works together to provide each other feedback on a regular basis and learning and accountability and engagement. And utilizing that system helps ferret out the people who really don't want to show up for work. And then it makes the conversation later that the leader can have with that person that says, you really aren't happy here and you need to go spread your joy somewhere else. And generally, those people leave. In some of the most successful organizations in using that process, the people that needed to leave left early because they did not want to be accountable. They did not want to be a team player. And the other thing that starts to happen, though, is winning teams attract winning players. And so the A players will teach the B players, the C players leave, the B players who want to learn become A players, and the win-win cycle starts to speed up, and it's an incredible thing to watch. So the bad people go away if you follow the process, and the good people start to come in because they want to be part of a winning team.
And you need to prune the tree sometimes for it to grow, right?
Right.
And my dad, I'm sure he's listening because my parents are always listening. He always would say, if there's someone on the team who leaves, sometimes it's addition by subtraction because
Yes.
other people can step up and grow into new opportunities. I'm very fortunate in that I don't work in a place right now that's toxic, but I certainly have in the past. And when that toxicity leaves, everyone kind of takes a breath and it's like, wow, step into their light, right?
We put so much energy into that person. And we don't need to. We need to put energy into the people who are solving problems and creating opportunities and building value for our stakeholders.
Jim, how can people get more information on MCC's program?
Thanks, Stacy. Our website for MCC Corporate College is this program and all programs. The next Conscious Leader program starts this Thursday, September 14th. We do have seats remaining for that program. www.workforceforward.com is our website. Again, we have 100 fall 2017 offerings. They're all there. People can self-register from that site. I'd also like to invite everyone to an open house on the 26th of September at our new facilities at the downtown campus. We are on the 7th floor in the Economic and Workforce Development Center. A beautiful facility. We have 4 new classrooms. Great learning opportunity for all of those folks who will come to our program.
Nice investment in downtown Rochester. And obviously, if someone can't make it in September, you're always offering this type of
We
program.
do have this
right?
program again that starts November 2nd. And again, the registration is open now, so you can go to that www.workforceforward.com
Juliana, what do you
site.
feel has been your biggest transformation since investing in this program?
I think understanding how to be a better leader and understanding what drives me to be one way or the other. Being an active listener, letting go of control, being assertive when time is right.
Podcasts of Eyes on the Future are available at rochesterbiz.com and through the iTunes store. If you've missed any of today's show, I'll be posting it on our website, rochesterbiz.com, next week. Thank you all for coming in today. I feel like I learned something, so I hope our listeners did too. This is Eyes on the Future. Every week we speak to Rochester leaders who are helping grow our regional economy, and you certainly are helping our workforce be that much more productive. I appreciate it. I'm Stacey Henning signing off. Have a great day and a great weekend.